Hey lads, how you doing? I'm writing this script on the 27th of June 2022 and I really hope I got my act together in time to get this video out for Sunbreak. I'm looking forward to that game. Today is my court-mandated time to talk about Monster Hunter Frontier as always, and you all seem to like it when I do, so it's a win-win for everyone. Pretty fun game to talk about, especially the unique weapons. Today's video is about that, specifically the Tonfa. You see, I can't pretend to know what the entirety of the community is thinking, only about 80%, but I'm pretty sure there's a common trope you associate with the Tonfa. You see, hammers KO, gun lance explodes, hunting horn gets a different weapon every single game, and the Tonfa? The Tonfa fly. I'm sure plenty of you have seen Tonfa gameplay of it running the back scratcher supreme on monsters, jumping up and just sticking to the thing while firing off punch after punch after punch. A while back, before the general consensus on Frontier did a bit of a U-turn and became mostly positive, this was a common complaint. The weapon seemed spammy to those not familiar and just antithetical to the combat of Monster Hunter that we were accustomed to at the time. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that today, as well as cover some lesser known uses for the dragon sticks that those not familiar may not be aware of. I'm CeraCymmetry, and here's the many styles of Tonfer. The Tonfa, or Senryukon in Japanese, was the first of Frontier's Sonic OC do not steal weapons to make it from their colouring books into an actual factual game. Thematically, it had its niche as a fast-hitting blunt weapon, designed to run circles around attacks while sticking like glue to a monster's face or otherwise. Now, when it launched in Monster Hunter G Genuine, it was leagues above a lot of other weapons in general, as for some unbeknown reason, Capcom Online Games thought it pertinent to give these sticks the ability to sprint whilst unsheathed. Bear in mind, this was a full 2 years before every other weapon would have this privilege, and Tonfa enjoying the luxury of low commitment attacks with rapid gap closing movement was a hell of a selling point. At the time, the main playstyle involved what we're familiar with, jumping up, punching monsters, then performing a unique kick that would increase your height, repeating this over and over and never touching the ground. Now this kick worked quite nicely, as it could only be performed in Tonfa's unique short mode that essentially reversed hit zones, meaning you could force a weakness on a safer zone like the wings, all while staying in the sky. Even outside of this, the infernal back hit zone that a lot of other weapons couldn't hit often came with some weaknesses, and only Tonfa could capitalize on that. So that's the long and the short of how the sticks initially played. To understand the next section, I'm going to have to touch on a mechanic of the weapon. This little gauge here in blue is what's known as the EX gauge, and it was introduced with Storm, Heaven, and Extreme. The way that it works is that as you attack, it fills up, and each little wedge of the gauge allowed you to perform an EX evade. This was a special type of evade that granted generous iframes and would inflict damage during it, meaning you really wanted to stay on the offensive to take advantage of it, and a skilled player would have near constant uptime on these attacks. Indeed, the Extreme style used this a ton, pretty much just staying airborne doing nothing but spiral dashes. It was absurd how one-dimensional this appeared as a viewer, and whilst there was a fair amount of hidden nuance in staying optimal with the playstyle, it really was still very simplistic. You jump up, time your dash in accordance with various attacks and AoEs, and if you touch the ground just repeat and hope you don't get smacked. You could continue this though in perpetuity because our little EX gauge also refreshed when evading through attacks. Now the stronger the attack, the more the gauge. Not to mention on top of that, when Z Zenith came out, the update increased the amount of air evades one could do from a single jump, and the Ryuki attack, a sort of hit zone dependent buff/super move, allowed players to benefit from infinite gauge for a long period of time. Yeah, with all this combined, it's no wonder you could stay in the air forever, and it kind of looked like a lot of new players in World when they picked up the Insect Glaive for the first time, just helicoptering over and over. Thing is, whilst on a pure numbers game this was the way to play Tonfa, I wanted to talk today about two interesting alternative playstyles that were just as fun and also pretty powerful in their own right. They're also playstyles I don't really see spoken about that much. Perhaps it's due to unfamiliarity, or maybe just because people prefer Extreme, who knows, but I think they deserve a spotlight. Starting with the Heaven style Tonfa. Heaven, much like Extreme, inherited the EX gauge to be used for the powerful and basically free movements that I spoke about earlier. You had the option of using each cardinal direction for a different attack/dodge, however it's the lateral movement that's the focus here. Forward and back were pretty nice, but they were a single attack. The lateral movements were 2 quick spins. They hit multiple times in succession, but as you can see here, you were able to change your direction mid-combo. This was pretty big. It meant that skilled players could maintain their onslaught on a specific hit zone without flying too far away. And I don't know about you, but I think it looks pretty stylish. The real meat, however, comes from the synergy with a particular skill. You see, EX Evades also didn't consume any stamina at all, which allowed the skill Combat Supremacy to be used. Combat Supremacy, or CS, was an interesting skill that constantly drained the player's stamina when their weapon was out, in exchange for a flat 20% boost to your damage. You kinda see where I'm going with this? At the start, players would build up gauge by evading through an initial attack before the stamina bar hit 0, and from there would have to solely rely on EXing every single attack they could, maintaining gauge and crushing out damage, since if that went, you certainly didn't have any stamina to back you up. It was complete knife-edge gameplay, and so fascinating to me that really it was the main reason I wanted to make this video. Absolutely insane, and a playstyle that actively encouraged being targeted by a monster as a core mechanic. You gotta love it. The next playstyle, however, looks somewhat more restrained and used the Storm style. You see, with this, EX evades were gone, meaning that whilst players could still run whilst unsheathed and use the base kit's evasions, things were looking a little bit less safe. What the hunter did get, however, was a handheld pile bunker in the form of EX discharges. Part of the Tonfer's moveset involved charging attacks, and whilst these were nice with an opening, the quick combos really were the way to go. Storm style, however, allowed players to augment the range and power of these charges by consuming a portion of the EX gauge during the charge. This led to essentially a boxing fighting style. You'd sidestep, charge, punch, sidestep and so on, building up ridiculous KO value all the time and doing pretty respectable damage to boot. It's pretty fun to have a very understated looking playstyle like this in Frontier that could still put out pretty good damage. Seriously, there's a few max level zeniths that could be beaten in under 4 minutes with this style, so it's not to be scoffed at. Not only this, but Tonfa was also able to take advantage of the skill's focus and charge attack up for the playstyle, meaning that you had another set to grind and more game to play. Isn't that neat? I even managed to give the boxing setup a go before the game shut down, and good lord is it fun when you get it down. Legitimately, truly simple fun. But that's how those played. Hopefully this was eye-opening for you, and I hope you enjoyed this little look at Tonfa today. I really did want an excuse just to talk about this playstyle, as it seems that it's very underrated and not really spoken about with the general community. Frontier videos are always really fun for me, and I hope they're fun for you too. Hey, any questions? Add them down below, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. Cheers lads, until next time.